Welcome back to our first episode of our third season here on Leap Into Business. Leap Into Business is the official podcast of our School of Business here at Lehman College. And don't forget, our School of Business here at Lehman, it's the only school of business at a public institution of higher education in the Bronx or Westchester. And for our third season, we are thrilled to be joined today by Rob Walsh, President of the Bronx Economic Development Corporation.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I have your bio here outlined, bullet points. I think it's about 12 pages long.
That's
but obviously,
don't believe
Rob,
everything you read.
Rob is a well-established business leader, policymaker, radio star in any number of ways, right? Pushing entrepreneurship in the Bronx and beyond. So, Rob, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today with us.
Well, I love being here, and I love the tour of this place. It's I think one of the best kept secrets in the Bronx, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
And we got to get the word out.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so to kick off our conversation here today, I honestly wanted to just ask you to now, right, going back, what are some of the key values, lessons, or best practices that in your various roles have made the best difference for entrepreneurs trying to launch their own business?
That's a great question, and and I think of it when I think about community development. We have organizations like the Bronx Economic Development Corporation. What role can we end up playing to build from the ground up? In places like the Bronx, how do you end up building the capacity of the organizations that need to be helping entrepreneurs do a good job? And I think one is developing a sense of culture, and having people around you in our case, the Bronx Economic Development Corporation, that are going to be proactive and think about entrepreneurs. What more can we do to help them? But it's also about making sure that the capacity is on that level. We could help someone with capital access. We could help them with a loan. We could help them with a permit. We could help them, navigate through government. But there has to be a mindset that they see something really powerful in the entire community, shaping and developing.
That's a really good point, that the idea or the motivation of the solo entrepreneur is great, but in order to really have a thriving business community, to your point, there are other tools and resources and just information, right, that are incredibly important.
Yeah, and I look at the Bronx. We have something called business improvement districts that I oversaw when I was working for Mike Bloomberg at City Hall. A number of years ago, the Bronx only had 4. We have 12 now, and these are conduits to bring small businesses together and getting people around the table. Government, nonprofit organizations, colleges and universities. When you look at retail corridors and you say, we got a number of empty storefronts, what do we need? How do we develop it? What do the numbers look like? What are some of the basic things that we need? It might be, the corridor's dirty. It might be it feels unsafe, or people don't, the perception of the place. Collectively, it makes one heck of a difference when you can bring a whole bunch of different people together in communities. And I think we have to do so much more in the Bronx on that front.
Yeah.
So, Rob, welcome again to Lehman.
Great to see you.
Great to see you as well. And, we go back a long way.
Yeah, you're an unbelievable partner for me. Yeah.
And with your experience at SBS and also in academia, in nonprofits, now at the EDC, I wonder if you can share with us what your vision is for how an institution like Lehman and many other institutions in the Bronx can help build this entrepreneurial ecosystem. You have had a very diverse and wealth of experiences and careers, and I think you can provide perspective on what is happening in the Bronx. I see the Bronx flourishing. It's amazing what's happening all over the borough. The South Bronx is also undergoing a boom, but so is the North Bronx. So tell us a little bit about how we could build that ecosystem even further.
I think you're doing it. I walk by a beautiful new nursing school. We have a shortage of nurses in this city, in this borough. You are feeding the neighborhoods, and you are creating new jobs. Your new school of business and what is happening here and the tools that you're giving students, the entrepreneurial centers, the small business development centers, getting businesses in and I want to talk a lot about this. Is we in the Bronx are not going to do it with a whole bunch of anchor institutions. We're not Manhattan. We're not downtown Brooklyn in that way. What we need to do is we need to get more of those makers and entrepreneurs and small businesses that are looking to develop. And I think one of our advantages, quite frankly, is it's a lot more affordable here in the Bronx. And there are emerging neighborhoods where they can make a difference, where there is a void. And the fact that, Lehman created a business school and is hungry to have entrepreneurial programs and having challenges and getting folks out in internship programs and having professors doing research, it makes all the difference in the world. Yeah. And I think it's a multi-prong approach, right? It's a multi-prong approach. It's your real estate investments. The fact that you're facing out rather than facing in. You have a performing arts center here. Correct. There's people in and out. You have professors who are engaged. You have students who want to make their neighborhoods better. I just met somebody in the studio now. I asked him where he was from. He said, "I'm from the Bronx." Yes. I'm very proud of it. Of course. And I think what we're seeing here in the Bronx is many pockets that are developing and coming together. I'm blown away what I see in the South Bronx, Mott Haven, 10,000 new residential units in the last decade or so. Artists, coming in, restaurants coming in, coffee shops, but we have a lot more to do. And I think Lehman is positioned well of priming that pump.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it really does matter, the individuals that are in a neighborhood, in a borough, in terms of building out the business and then sort of building out the business community. But, with hybrid work from home, Zoom, all of that, how is that changing sort of this mindset of, bringing everybody in the neighborhood to the table? How is that changing? This sort of influx of folks that work elsewhere, live elsewhere. How is that changing your headset?
Well, another great question. The key thing is sort of what I see here at Lehman. If you're introduced to it and the tools are available, they're going to come. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurs. Is how do you get to the entrepreneurs? It's the biggest hurdle that I have right now, and it's one of the biggest frustrations I have in my job. We have resources. We have capital access. We have money that dates back to when Bill Clinton was president of the United States. I wish he was today, but that's a whole different story. Capital is not the issue. It's getting people prepared to start at the starting line, not the finish line, but the starting line, and the credit, a business plan, a vision, a direction, and we reach out to a lot of business, and I'm sure this is the case at Lehman too. You reach out to a lot of people, you cast a net, really wide. You start doing the follow-ups, and they start disappearing. They go away. And I think back to your question about the role Lehman plays, we need to do so much more in this borough in preparing businesses, providing technical assistance, business services, marketing ideas, it's amazing how many businesses that I run into, they don't have websites. They're not using technology, and getting them to the level. Now, to your question about remote, it becomes a lot harder in terms of in person, gathering people. But it's a lot easier through social media, through LinkedIn, through all different other resources, and we have gotten a lot more aggressive about getting our stuff out through social media for those people who are working remotely.
No, I mean because there's so much data out there right now, and noise, be it politics, be it business, be it all kinds of other stuff out there, that it can be hard to sort of get the right information to the right people sometimes.
And that's what I think what you were referring to earlier. The resources we have here at Lehman can play a very significant role. We have a small business development center right on this building.
Yep.
We have a business incubator on CUNY and the Concourse, which is on Concourse and Fordham Road. Excellent location for businesses in the Bronx that want to get advice, that want to get mentoring. To your point, it's not necessarily about the capital, although the capital is absolutely essential, but you have to be ready to receive that capital and use it effectively and properly. So I'm wondering, Rob, if you could give us advice in terms of the needs of small businesses in a little bit more detail. You started saying it, you started talking about it, but in the context of what we called experiential learning. You've heard that term. It's an academic term for something very simple. We believe that you and the students learn better by doing.
Yeah.
It's not by sitting in a classroom and listening to a professor, give a lot of theory. No, you have to actually experiment. That's why we call it experiential learning. And in my mind, what better opportunity for students to learn by doing than it is by helping small businesses. You mentioned digital marketing, for instance. Well, we have a great digital marketing program here. Couldn't our students in marketing help those small businesses? And by the way, that allows them to learn new skills, new hard skills for the workforce. So what specifically do you think small businesses in the Bronx need that our students could be a key factor in providing?
Well, let's look at different buckets, right? One is capital access and understanding before they go and look for a loan, whether a traditional bank, and also letting entrepreneurs know that many traditional banks are not going to touch you.
Yeah.
Your first time, your credit score might not be good. You might not have a good past on another venture you had. But there are
or you don't have history. You don't have credit history. Yeah.
So there are nonprofit organizations out there that are willing to extend themselves and make character loans. And there's organizations like the Bronx Economic Development Corporation that are going to work with you, is to get the students to understand the wide breadth of possibilities for capital and capital access. That's one. I would say that's one. The second is the business services, whether it's technology, the use of technology. It's putting a business plan together. It's marketing of products. All the pieces in that. And then the third one is, I feel battle scarred on this one, is the navigating government, and I think
the permits, the
federal, state, local. Where do I go to get help? We have a couple of mayoral candidates talking about, oh my goodness, it takes 24 permits to open up a restaurant with an outdoor cafe and a landmark building. They're right, and unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is not done online. So, getting folks to understand its persistence, its follow-up, and then you have issues of language barriers, right? Of language barriers, and some of this stuff is not, and the folks on the other side of government are not prepared for that.
right.
And getting over that hurdle and getting, entrepreneurs, don't quit, don't give up. You're almost there. And I think if when you're preparing students and you're talking to students, is getting them to understand these different pieces that complicate the reason why more entrepreneurs don't put their products out.
And now you mentioned several topics that we will
Yeah.
go deeper into,
Yeah.
but one of them brings me back to when you were with the Bloomberg administration, Commissioner of Small Business Services. You did quite a number of initiatives. I'm wondering, in those years, which of those initiatives you feel proudest about and you think have been long-lasting, that still to this day have made an impact, not only in the Bronx, in the entire city of New York?
I'm smiling because I think we finally got the confidence of many small businesses and nonprofit organizations, and we had partners like you that were urging us on. And I had Mike Bloomberg, the 800-pound gorilla, with his support, is the things that we did on entrepreneurial programs, whether it was our build out of the minority and women-owned business programs, our work with Kauffman Foundation, our work with Initiative for a Competitive Inner City. And, at the end of my years there, I started talking to Goldman Sachs about this program called 10,000 Small Business Programs. That started around our conference tables. And I was, proud that they, this could work. This could really work. In fact, they took one of my colleagues, a woman by the name of Jessica Taylor, to run the program.
Yep.
And that has not only had a powerful impact here in New York City, teaming up with a CUNY school to make that happen at LaGuardia. But they've gone nationwide with that.
Absolutely.
And they've had some pretty powerful results. And that was a government agency being proactive, bringing people around the table, and getting private sector entities to believe in us. And I think that made all the difference in the world. And that's tough to do sometimes. And I think it's particularly tough in this environment right now on a lot of different levels of government. And we have to get back at that.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, and I was going to pop the hood on a
Earlier
comment that you made, Rob.
I'm a little worried about this, but go ahead.
No, because you've sort of pushed the importance of having the private sector and the government and nonprofits all trying to work towards a common goal.
Yeah.
How is that possible if there are people actively trying to work against other groups in those three? I won't name names, right, because it's always messy, right? Politics and policy aren't ever clear cut, right? But if you're trying to work through that, if you're trying to pivot the mission or the orientation of a certain conversation with a broad coalition of external partners, what are the best practices that you've seen and done to try to navigate this large coalition of people who might want the same end goal but aren't always seeing eye to eye?
I'm not taking your class. I quickly think about the work that we did as a government agency in believing that we could end up getting more capital access, loans and grants to small businesses. Whether it was teaming up with you at the SBA, whether it was teaming up with nonprofit organizations, but I think one of the most powerful things that we got, and I got a lot of help from a guy by the name of Mike Bloomberg, is putting banks at a table together and saying, look, it's a fact. You're not going to give a loan out to a first time. You're going to shy away from restaurants. We could play a role as government in making that happen. And we ended up getting them at the table, but then we had to deliver. You know, when Citibank or Bank of America or TD Bank, you name the bank, gave us a referral, we better have had to respond and respond quickly on that.
Yeah.
And I had banks giving us resources because they knew they were not going to spend the time and effort with these traditional startup entrepreneurs who could be making a difference in some of the fragile neighborhoods throughout the city. And I think the same thing here in the Bronx. And I feel that role with the Bronx Economic Development Corporation. I came in, there were 4 or 5 members of the board. 4 or 5 members of the board. That was it. We're now at 14. You know, we reached out, banks, CUNY's at the table, Mercy University's at the table, the Yankees are at the table. You know, we broadened it. This is your board. It's not me showing you a PowerPoint every quarter. It's your board. I work for you. What should we be focusing on together?
Yeah.
And I think it's about, you know, getting people to feel the ownership, like they own this and they want to make something happen. And we've made some inroads in that way.
So let me ask you specifically for our audience.
That was a really good answer to that question, Rob. Very good question to answer to a hard question.
So you would give an A to Rob if he took your class? That's great. See?
Yeah, right? All right.
There you go.
I haven't gotten an A in a while.
So for our audience who might be interested in knowing more about the services that the EDC provides, you mentioned microlending. But microlending could be a significant amount, right? So can you tell us a little bit how microlending works and how you offer that possibility to businesses?
All right. So microlending, we started a new loan program. We have a number of different new loan programs, and this is where I need to say bxedc.org. You know, that they could go to the website.
bxedc.org, just have it play right here.
And, you know, you could get in touch with us and someone better respond. If they don't respond, you know, reach out to me. But it's the micros is we will do a micro loan of anything from $5,000 up to $50,000 on a micro loan.
Right.
And then we have different levels of other loan packages that we have. But the microloans were at 5%. And what we also look at is we've done something where we're taking chances, quite frankly, character loans. This woman who makes cupcakes in an industrial kitchen, hasn't been at it for a while, has gotten good reviews, has a passion, has a good business plan. Let's take a chance. Let's take a chance with that person. Someone that came out of
So can you define what a character loan is for those who might not know the term?
A character loan is someone who doesn't have many years of business experience and doesn't have a track record on their credit on their credit numbers. So,
but show good moral character and then have a good business idea, or
they have a good business idea. They have a good plan. They have a vision in terms of where they want to take the the business. And you're rolling the dice a little bit, but I think that's what we should be doing as a nonprofit.
That's a really powerful option, though, right? Because the vast bulk of entrepreneurs, it's either their first venture or their 12th venture, right? But either way, their paperwork or their sort of formalized track record might not be there.
And I think this is something that should be shared with Lehman. Is we started last year something called the BX Factor. We did it at Yankee Stadium. We're going to give you $15,000. We teamed up with Santander Bank. We're going to give 4 awards, the top one, second, third, fourth place. We got, let's say we got 100 applications for it. 20, 25 weren't so great, but there were, let's just say the top 50 is worth pursuing. You weren't a finalist, but we're interested in you and your idea and helping you take it to the next level. These programs, these challenges end up pushing out the message and these ideas that come out like never before. I don't only do this at BXEDC, I do it at 1010 Wins. We have these challenge programs that happen. And it makes all the difference in it. Wow, I didn't know about this business. I can't tell you how many times I've gone up to someone and said, "You're not going to win, but I'm gonna do something on a Monday morning about your program, and I hope it gets some traction."
Yeah, which brings me back to one of the services we provide at Lehman that I think goes right along with that. It's I mentioned it earlier. It's our business and technology incubator. So where you have a place and you have entrepreneurs who start collaborating. I think the key here is to have a place where they can all congregate and start sharing ideas or also start sharing services. So it might be an accountant, and there might be a digital marketeer, or there might be someone who is developing a new product and might need some legal help on how to commercialize that idea. So when you have a space like that one where you can all come together, very inexpensively, we are, thanks to the city and CUNY, we provide those services to businesses in the Bronx at very low cost. You can start breeding that type of ecosystem that we're talking about, and that's what I think could make a big difference if it's more widely known. As you said, for some it's a secret, well-kept secret. We need to make sure we make it broadly known that these resources exist, that the microlending program at the BXEDC exists, that they can get a loan of up to $50,000 for just 5%. But it's not only the loan. Microlending also comes with certain support services, right? And maybe you can talk a little bit about those as well, because as you very well said at the beginning, it's not only the capital; it's knowing how to use that capital.
Yeah, and it's it's getting entrepreneurs over the barrier of the intimidation, if you will, of walking into a school of business at a Lehman or any other place. This is, by the way, really inviting. But it becomes a barrier. As you were talking, it would be nice if we got to the point where it's not just a loan. It's a curse word for a lot of businesses. I don't want to do another loan. I don't care if it's 5%. I can't put myself out there. It would be nice if we could end up developing together something that is a loan and a grant. That at the end of the rainbow, that if you're good, it's forgivable. Right?
Correct.
And why is that good? Because the business has now established. The business is now creating jobs. The business is developing a brick and mortar. It'd be nice if we could end up together developing something. If you're paying your loan, a certain amount of payments, it becomes forgivable at the end of it. And that would be a neat thing to do.
And it would be a great incentive.
But I'm also interested in what you're saying, and I'm thinking out loud here, which is really dangerous.
We can cut this. Don't worry.
No. This is important. This is important, and it's a lesson of learning from others. There's two empowerment zones in the city. There's a Bronx empowerment zone, and there's an Upper Manhattan empowerment zone. I was at the last meeting of the empowerment zone, and the folks who run the Harlem, Upper Manhattan empowerment zone were talking about grants for artists and getting artists to come to Harlem, and they were doing it in grants. What if we, thought about, developing something along what you're talking about, and if they're in the empowerment zone zip codes, we'll put a grant up for those. Yeah. And I think that's worth pursuing because the empowerment zone money goes to certain zip codes or adjacent areas. Yep. So you could tap into the Lehman program and we will provide you, and if you are successful in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, at stage 5, we're going to give you a grant.
Right, and maybe some members of the audience don't know what the benefits of an empowerment zone include, but some tax credits can really make a big difference in terms of the investment. That possibility of partnerships, as you mentioned earlier, having a public sector or a university or a nonprofit in conjunction with a private entity.
Yes.
Right now, we are working with one of those initiatives. We're doing a P3, public-private partnership, that's going to allow us to offer housing for our Lehman students.
Wow.
That's coming up next year.
That's a big leap. Congratulations.
Yes, it is. It is indeed for us, and that is just an example of the type of things that an empowerment zone could provide. Maybe you can give a little bit more detail in terms of what benefits of the empowerment zone we could tap into.
Well, the key thing is the capital, and the capital could be loans or it could be grants, and I think that's the key. And the other thing is, we have staff that could end up identifying what other incentives are available in those, zip codes. It could be energy cost savings. It could be, relocation from, let's just say, a place called Manhattan into the Bronx. So there's a number of other incentives that we could point people into the direction. But the key thing is the capital, and not necessarily loans, but also grants. And that's something we have not pursued up until this point. I see a partnership on this.
Yeah.
But I love what you're talking about, the fellowship. And if we could end up, using some, let's try it.
Of course. Yeah.
Mike Bloomberg used to say, throw it up on the wall. If it doesn't stick, try again. But let's, if there's something there, let's pursue it.
And with so many opportunities for partnership here in the Bronx, you mentioned Yankees earlier. 2 weeks ago, I was at the Yankee Stadium. We were announcing the second cohort of Lehman students who are participating in a sports management seminar.
I was at that game.
Yes,
I was at that game. And they lined up right before the game, right behind home plate.
It was raining,
I was at that rainy game.
Yes. And that's the type of program that we are building more and more of, because it provides that partnership with entities here in the Bronx. But the small businesses also could very well benefit from those type of partnerships.
No, I mean, this has been an incredible conversation, and I do think there's a lot of opportunities for us to work together, the college and the BX EDC. But in terms of any of our students in the audience listening to this,
let's do it. Go.
What is one piece of advice that, if you had to give them one piece of advice as to how to start doing all this stuff, right? How to accessing the resources, starting a business, being a supporter of the broader business community, what's that one piece of advice to have them start doing today?
It's advice I give my kids. I have a daughter and a son. My son just graduated undergrad and is off to grad school. And the thing that I often say to him is go beyond, go the extra mile. If you have to be in at work at 9 o'clock, come in early. Before you walk out the door, stop and say, check in with your boss and say, I'm leaving now unless you have something for me to do. Make those inroads. Read like crazy. Become an expert. If you see an article in the papers, you see something on social media, and it has something to relate to the work that you're doing, put it in front of your colleagues at work and say, I saw this article and it applies to what we're doing. Maybe it's not here in New York, but it's in Chicago, and I think we could end up doing it here. So be well read. Be a good team player when you get into an environment. I think that's where a lot of folks misstep. Take advantage of internships. Take advantage.
That's a big push here at Lehman.
Take advantage of internships. I can't tell you how many times I have hired full-time people from the internship pool, if you will. And even if folks were, that person I had last summer was fantastic. Did they graduate? Can we get them back? And I think it's take advantage of those programs. Volunteer. Mm-hmm. Volunteer on campus. Do something. Whether it's a food bank or whether it's helping. In the case of business, low income families. With their taxes, but do something to get a even greater and keener perspective
Mm-hmm.
of what some of the issues are,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes a talking point when you're going for a full-time job. Quite frankly,
Yeah.
what did you do on that? Why did you do that? What are some of these things that, people want to see? They want to see folks who are, I said go the extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see folks who are proactive.
Proactive, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. One message I try to convey to my students and
Yeah.
my kids as well. There's a difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary.
Yeah.
And it's that extra. Doesn't have to be too much. But that 5% extra, what you just said, ask your boss before leaving for the day, is there anything else I can do? That extra makes you extraordinary. And that's what will set you apart from other potential candidates. So I love the recommendations. You have been a wonderful guest, Rob. So
Yes.
good that I think we're going to have to bring you back.
I love
if
it.
You,
Absolutely.
If you agree.
We got to build out this some of these ideas we kicked around
Absolutely.
today.
And you mentioned earlier your website. Is that the best way to get in contact with you?
bxedc.org is the best way to get in touch with us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there you can find all the services provided by
And I want to thank
organization.
you. I mean, you have been a great partner. In the past when I worked for Mayor Bloomberg, and when I saw you when I walked in, I smiled because
yes.
I had
a big embrace. And,
we did a lot of good things together. And
yeah. And we will continue to do
Thank you.
Absolutely.
good things and great things together.
Absolutely.
Sean, thank you so much
Yes.
for hosting.
Absolute
Sean,
Provost,
nice
thank you so
meeting you.
much.
Yeah.
Rob, absolute pleasure was mine. And that's it for our first episode of Season 3, Leap into Business. Rob,
Thank you.
absolute pleasure.
I have to get back to you. You gave me some homework to do.
Here we go.